Welcome back to the channel, Crypto Trend Trader, with a quick update on Bitcoin. But before we get started, I'd like to remind you it's not financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor. These markets are extremely volatile, so please do your own research and trade responsibly. Well, we've been talking about it for a while, and there it is. Everybody was looking at this green trend line coming up here. It had caught the price here, and we had found support on it. Got the bounce up to the top here, and I said we're going to come down here real soon, and people are going to realize they're looking at the wrong trend line. And no sooner did we come down to retest that trend line, and we got the break. So now everybody wants to know where are the targets, and they're scrambling for TA and trying to figure out what's going on and why Bitcoin isn't the hedge. And here we are just looking at our same chart and the same lines that we've had on it for weeks and months and years. So now we're going to look at the correct trend line, and the reason that all the moon boys and influencers in the space got wrecked, we're going to take the blue line from the top of the bull market, and then we're going to draw that to the bottom of the following bear market. So we have our top to bottom trend line. Just like the green was our top to bottom trend line in the previous case, the blue is for this case, and then once we finally come in here and put in a low and then take out the all-time high, we'll come back down and put in a low, and then we'll draw a line from the top to the bottom of that market. But in the meantime, once again, Crypto Trend Trader was exactly right. We capitulated from the unbreakable Bitcoin trend line that everyone else had stolen off someone else's chart. And we've dumped down here, and now we are, not only did we dump down to retest the channel that we were basically like consolidating in before we got that positive break. We broke all the way down into it, into the heart line, and came all the way down. You'll see we do have a fib in place from the bottom here at 3,300 up to the top in like that 14,000 range, and we did blow straight through the 0.5 after the first time testing it, and we got that powerful move back up to fib levels to the 236 from the 0.5 382 to the 236 two level bounce, just like we always say. And then from there, 1 2 3 down. So what's likely to happen after that? We're here nearly at the 618. I wouldn't rush into a position, but based on the amount of support we had here before our previous capitulation zone, and the amount of volume that came in and everything, lining up with our Fibonacci and the amount of selling pressure that we've had come in, I'd say it's probably very likely that we are going to get that bounce from this area at 5,600, which would be our 618, and it's going to line up with a lot of the other indicators and oscillators that we use here. At that point in time, it's likely that we would get that test back up to the 0.5. But again, as we start putting in capitulation candles like this, and we start making it very clear to the market with these violent sell-offs that we are in fact in, like a bear market or a bear trend or a downtrend or a correction or headed to new lows, etc. As that becomes more and more clear, the sentiment of the market is going to shift, and we'll see less of a bounce off of these massive sell-offs. So like, as where normally we might get that 2-level bounce, we may start seeing that we're only getting the 1-level bounce as the market, sentiment essentially shifts over. And, I want to just basically come back here again and talk about what I just spoke about in the last video as well. I'm going to switch to the shorter time frame here. And this is a perfect example of what I was saying about when too many people's on the same side of a trade, you better look and realize you might be on the wrong side of that trade. Because everybody and their mom was talking about this inverted head and shoulders, this massive one that was forming, and how if we came down right here and held this area, and look, it was holding, and then even when we started selling off, people were thinking, oh, this is just like the stab down to wash out all the stop loss. And then that would have come in line perfectly with the retest here. And in all actuality, just like I said, too many people looking at the same pattern, it's not going to play out. And we get that massive capitulation. Cleaned out all those people. All of them. So that's it. That's my perfect exact point once again playing out. I mean, literally, so many points all in one video. We basically proved that the trend line that everybody else had essentially been using right here was not even the correct trend line to be using. We proved that the top to bottom trend line is in fact the relevant trend line, and as we come down here and test that area, it'll become very clear, especially if we do get down to like the 786 or 886 and then we get that reversal, or even just to the top of the triangle. It's going to become very clear. But at this point in time, I would not recommend catching a knife, but this is not financial advice. Chances are, if you're the type of person who's jumping in trying to catch a knife, you're probably the type of person who already ate this with the majority or all of their accounts. So I do not recommend listening to the influencers in this space, as they clearly have no idea what they're talking about. Basically I called out a lot of these moves and patterns, and if you do go back and look at my last few videos, you'll see I specifically laid out all these moves ahead of time, and you can essentially look at the documented proof. And I do encourage you to go back and look at and learn from them, because not only do I explain to you what's going to happen, but I also explain why it's going to happen and how I knew it was going to happen. And I did want to touch on something else as well. I had specifically been talking about how this was a massive distribution pattern taking place, and people apparently just don't understand what distribution is, because when we popped up here and we basically took out that channel, we essentially just proved my point that this is just a huge distribution pattern, with the purple as the bottom of the pattern and the yellow at the top. That's just essentially a descending broadening wedge. And we came here and put in the line, we came back up, touched it, we got a bunch of touches on the bottom, and now we're selling back off to the bottom here. And I had essentially said the exact same thing in this zone. And that's what's really crazy about this situation is that I had drawn in this descending broadening wedge way back here. Okay, I mean, it was literally drawn in from, like, I think in this area here before we even broke out of this pattern. And again, you can go back and watch my video, because yeah, that's exactly what it was. I had it drawn in ahead of time before this on a shorter time frame, because I called this pop up here to retest the breakdown area of that trend line up, and then also to test the top of the descending broadening wedge. And then look, the whole time it played out perfectly, and we played this exact move perfectly. And then finally, by the time it gets down to here, everybody sees it and starts putting in like their trade setups to move back to the top of the range and then break out to new highs, because this is a bullish pattern here, which obviously it's not. And then we get the massive capitulation out of the pattern that once again has been drawn on these charts. I mean, for days, weeks, months. You can go back and look. People sometimes say, oh yeah, if you draw enough lines on your chart, you're bound to hit something. But when you draw a few lines on the chart and then you look at the same lines and you look at the same charts over and over and over again for days or weeks or months, and you don't see those lines moving, and then you see price action specifically interacting with those lines, better start understanding that they're on there for a reason. So but there you have it. Essentially, I would not recommend catching a falling knife to anyone ever. But that's not financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor. These markets are extremely volatile, so please do your own research and trade responsibly. And I think as long as, essentially this cycle perpetuates of, like, more cases and, starts affecting people's actual daily life and, potentially, like, scares or threatens their, like, health or livelihood, I think we're going to see continued sell-offs in all the markets, because, like, honestly, people care about, like, food and ammunition and, medication, not not all these assets. They don't care about the stock market. They care about retirement. They don't care about like sticking it to the man. They care about, like, dollars to pay their bills with. So you got to understand the relevance of these things. And I made a specific comment about it again in that last video about people talking about, oh, Chainlink is a hedge and Tezos and this, that, and the other. And I specifically said how I've seen it happen a million times. What they do is, they start pumping a bunch of money into one coin and put it on like this epic bull run, and it looks like, it's the best thing since sliced bread, and get everybody on the hype train and keep pumping it up, pumping up, pumping up, and then finally dump it. And one of my buddies brought to my attention that, not only did it actually lose, like, I think it's down like 40% on the day right now. That's like Tezos, Chainlink, both. I'm sure there's plenty of other ones as well. But that's a specific exact example of what I was talking about. Matter of fact, my buddy brought to my attention that I think on Binance it was, the Chainlink actually flash crashed all the way down to a penny. So just think about that. When you're FOMOing into these things, and what kind of person has thousands of people listening to him, and makes comments like Chainlink is a hedge and stuff like that, because less experienced people listening to you and see all this, take it as credibility, and you potentially, like, obviously the people are not intelligent if they're taking financial advice from someone on the internet, but let's be real. I mean, that's what people do. That's why they're on the internet, looking for someone to do TA or tell them what to do. So, all the disclaimers in the world. And, there's still a certain responsibility to, your community and listener, viewers, whatever you want to call it. I just can't even believe it. I feel bad for the people that, are new to this market and, completely get wrecked and, will be gone as quickly as they came. No thanks to the influencers in the space and on YouTube. So it is very unfortunate, but it is what it is. If you lost money in this drop here, I'm sorry to hear that. It's very unfortunate. That people didn't see this coming, or the people that did see it coming, didn't have the voice to reach those who didn't. So, but there it is. We took out the low and put in a new low for this entire sell-off. Confirm once again that we are still in a bearish consolidation period or bear market, and that we are potentially going to come down here and threaten our next fib level, which in this case I would expect at 5,600 to hold at some point in time, at least temporarily, as that was essentially like the bottoming area from our previous capitulation zone. But at this point in time, with market volatility, all the fundamentals and the technicals and everything lining up, it's more likely that the selling is going to continue in all markets over, over the next couple weeks or months. So be very careful and protect your capital, and wait for the markets to turn around before you start just jumping back in and absorbing unnecessary losses. So there we have it, crypto trend trader. Charts available as always, indicators available as always. It's all free. If you want to show your support, you can, obviously. Helps out the channel. It'll all go back into it. So, crypto trend trader, and I'm out of here.